Welcome to Silk Route of Systems, an informative and one-of-a-kind web series that connects Far East Asian and Middle Eastern companies towards European manufacturers. Every episode creates an ecosystem for a company in question or shows one company that will benefit from multiple seemingly unrelated ones across the globe. And who should religiously follow this web series and reach out to me? Executives of small, medium enterprises who are looking to expand their supplier network and gain value through a shared network. Executives of large corporations who are looking to increase the overall value of their organization. Executives of large conglomerates who are looking for an architecture to connect all of their daughter companies together. And of course, mergers and acquisition firms who focuses on aerospace, automotive, semiconductor, and energy industries. You will learn how to make sure that the initial investment on the purchased companies can be enriched through developing the supply chain architecture of the conglomerate, and then you will also learn how an enterprise architecture connecting the operations to the market strategy would increase profits, and then of course, how a data architecture would connect a set of branches to the headquarters seamlessly. This episode is not sponsored by any of the companies that are being named here. This episode is merely an example of the in-depth consultation services that you could benefit from if you decide to go further in a business relationship with yours truly. The advice and strategic insights provided in this episode are not based on any book or classroom lectures. They're based on experience working for giant corporations in the world of capital equipment industry, like the semiconductor industry, the energy sector, medical devices, and automotives. So follow along, guys. Hanmi Semiconductor Corporation Limited in South Korea. Founded in 1980, Hanmi Semiconductor spent decades developing semiconductor packaging, inspection, and assembly equipment for the global chip industry. As artificial intelligence drove explosive demand for high-bandwidth memory, which is popularly known as HBM, Hanmi's thermocompression bonder technology became a critical enabler of the memory architectures powering modern AI accelerators. Today, the company occupies a strategic position between memory manufacturers such as SK Hynix and Micron, and therefore the AI computing platforms built by companies like NVIDIA. In many ways, Hanmi actually represents how 40 years of packaging innovation became one of the hidden foundations of the AI revolution. Before we discuss Hanmi Semiconductor itself, let's first understand where the company sits within the global semiconductor ecosystem. When people think about semiconductors, they often think about chip designers such as NVIDIA, AMD, Apple, Google, or Amazon. But long before an AI model can actually run inside a data center, an enormous industrial ecosystem must work together. And Hanmi is one of those pivotal companies in that industrial ecosystem of capital equipment. The journey begins with lithography companies such as ASML, Nikon, and Canon, whose technologies enable the creation of semiconductor patterns on silicon wafers. You can see it on the left. Those wafers are then manufactured by leading fabrication houses such as TSMC, Samsung, Intel, SK Hynix, and Micron. This is where Hanmi Semiconductor enters the picture. Hanmi specializes in some of the most critical capital equipment used in advanced packaging including TC bonders, hybrid bonding systems, vision placement technologies, inspection equipment, grinding systems, and laser solutions. These technologies help transform manufactured chips into highly advanced semiconductor packages. Those packages are then assembled and tested by companies such as ASE, Amkor, GCET, TTI, and Tongfu, enabling advanced architectures including HBM chiplets, 2.5D integration, 3D integration, and co-packaged optics, which is actually what NVIDIA, AMD, Broadcom, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google are doing. So ultimately, these technologies become part of the AI infrastructure powering modern data centers. cloud computing platforms, automotive AI systems, and high-performance computing. In many ways, Hanmi actually occupies one of the most strategically important positions in the semiconductor value chain. It sits at the intersection where manufactured chips become high-performance computing systems. What's particularly interesting is that Hanmi did not arrive at this position overnight. Its current role in the AI ecosystem is the result of more than 4 decades of deliberate, strategic evolution. So let's look at how the company's marketing strategy today on its own developed from 1980s to what it is now. This is Hanmi's marketing strategy from what I could infer from their product line and their overall direction that I could foresee from their website and from their product lines. Be aware that all of the infographics presented in this video are original works of yours truly. No co-creators and no sponsors have been involved in these infographics. But the information that I show you are, of course, 100% factual. I have checked it in their website. I have checked it in publicly available documents and platforms. All right, so before discussing Hanmi's future, it's truly worth understanding how the company arrived at its current position. When we look at Hanmi Semiconductor today, it's easy to associate the company with AI, HBM, and advanced packaging. But what we see today is actually the result of more than 4 decades of strategic evolution. In the 1980s, Hanmi entered Korea's growing semiconductor industry through factory automation. Products such as auto frame loaders and PLCC technologies helped manufacturers improve efficiency and productivity. Rather than competing directly in the front-end wafer fabrication equipment, Hanmi focused on solving practical manufacturing problems in the back end of semiconductor production. During the 1990s, the company moved into high-value activities. Vision placement systems, auto molding solutions, and precision package handling technologies allowed Hanmi to participate in increasingly demanding packaging processes. This period marked company's transition from an automation supplier into precision semiconductor equipment company. The 2000s brought globalization. Hanmi expanded internationally, strengthened its inspection and laser capabilities, and established itself as a differentiated equipment supplier serving customers beyond Korea. Then came the 2010s as the industry began exploring stacked memory and advanced packaging. Hanmi invested in technologies such as TSV dual stacking, TC bonders, micro SAW systems. These investments positioned the company for opportunities that would become much more important in the years ahead. And today, in the 2020s, Hanmi has become one of the most important equipment suppliers supporting advanced semiconductor packaging. Its portfolio now spans bonding, placement, inspection, grinding, laser technologies, and all of them enable HBM chiplets, 2.5D, and 3D packaging architectures. How wonderful is that? What's particularly interesting is that Hanmi's strategy has remained remarkably consistent over time. The company has repeatedly identified the next critical bottleneck in semiconductor packaging and expanded it. First came automation, then precision handling, then inspection, then advanced packaging, and now AI-driven semiconductor assembly. In many ways, Hanmi's success is not the result of a single breakthrough. It's a result of continuously moving closer to the most valuable parts of the semiconductor packaging value chain. And this is how you know that they are so intertwined in the semiconductor ecosystem. They keep up. They keep up with their clients. They keep up with the ecosystem and the trends that are going around it. Wonderful to actually research on this company. Now, that brings us to an important question. If Hanmi has successfully navigated 4 decades of industry change, what are the next challenges it will face? Because every successful company, especially a company that's doing so well, eventually encounters a new set of strategic threats, even when the business is booming. When we look at Hanmi Semiconductor today, it's easy to focus on the success story. The company has become one of the most important players in advanced packaging, particularly in the HBM ecosystem that is helping power the global AI boom. But in the capital equipment industries, today's bottleneck often becomes tomorrow's commodities that endure for decades are usually the ones that identify the next bottleneck before the rest of the market sees it. So let's look at the 5 strategic challenges that may shape Hanmi's next decade of growth. In the screen here, you would see 5 threats. I drew up a threat landscape. Once again, these are projections from my side as a capital equipment strategist, as an enterprise architecture consultant. This is a projection. This is a analysis from knowledge from the semiconductor industry and overall Han direction as it is going now. When we look at Hanmi Semiconductor today, it is easy to focus on the success story. The company has become one of the most important players in advanced packaging, particularly in the HBM ecosystem that is helping power the global AI boom. But in the capital equipment industries, today's bottleneck often becomes tomorrow's commodity. The companies that endure for decades are usually the ones that identify the next bottleneck before the rest of the market sees it. So let's look at 5 strategic challenges that may shape Hanmi's next decade of growth. The first is HBM maturity. HBM demand is growing rapidly today, but every successful technology eventually becomes more standardized. As more competitors enter the market and manufacturing expertise spreads, differentiation becomes harder and pricing power naturally comes under pressure. The second challenge is the immersion of hybrid bonding. While TC bonding remains extremely important today, the industry is already investing in technologies that promise high density and lower power consumption and improved performance. The strategic question is not whether hybrid bonding will grow. The question is whether Hanmi can lead the transition as effectively as it led the rise of TC bonding. The third challenge is customer concentration. Much of today's semiconductor investment is ultimately driven by a relatively small number of AI ecosystems. When a handful of companies influence demand across the entire supply chain, concentration risk naturally increases. The fourth challenge is Chinese self-sufficiency. China continues to invest heavily in semiconductor equipment, manufacturing capability, and domestic supply chains. Over time, this will create increasingly capable competitors across multiple segments of the market. And finally, the platform consolidation. Semiconductor manufacturers are increasingly, especially fabrication managers, are increasingly looking for integrated environments rather than isolated tools. They want equipment, analytics, process control, inspection, and factory intelligence working together as a connected system. What's important to recognize is that none of these are immediate threats. In fact, they are signs of success. Hanmi has become important enough that the future direction of the semiconductor industry itself will increasingly shape the future direction of Hanmi. So these are the strategic challenges on the horizon. The next question becomes obvious. How can Hanmi use its existing strengths to turn those challenges into opportunities? What could be the company's next market strategy? How does it look like over the coming decade? And that's what I'll answer. So far, we have looked at Hanmi's historical evolution and some of the strategic challenges that may emerge over the coming decades. The next question is perhaps the most interesting one. What could Han become next? The ideas on this slide are not predictions. They are not official Hanmi strategy. They represent one possible future path based on the company's existing strengths and the direction of the semiconductor industry, and of course, analysis done by yours truly. When I sit with the executives of Hanmi, it is very well possible that they want to go in a different direction. And then this slide or this entire slide deck would take a whole different turn. The first pillar to help define the future of packaging is that Hanmi has already established itself as a leader in advanced packaging equipment. The next step should be moving beyond individual machines and helping shape the technology roadmap for 2.5D packaging and 3D packaging, chiplets, co-packaged optics, and future packaging architectures. The companies that create the greatest long-term influence often help define industry architecture, not just supply equipment. And that's exactly what ASML is actually doing currently. ASML, the company who holds monopoly in the semiconductor ecosystem currently, who supplies lithography equipment, EUV technology, and DUV technology both. All right, the second pillar. The second pillar is the creation of a Hanmi manufacturing intelligence platform. Each machine generates valuable data, process data, yield data, throughput data, reliability data. Over time, that data can become as valuable as the equipment itself, and thus creates opportunities for process analytics, predictive maintenance, yield optimization, and factory intelligence services that continue creating value long after the machine is installed. The third pillar is expanding beyond HBM. HBM is a tremendous growth driver today. Future AI systems may combine memory, logic, photonics, optical interconnects, and chiplets in entirely new ways. The strategic objective is not simply to win in HBM. It is to ensure that Hanmi remains essential regardless of which packaging architecture ultimately becomes dominant. The fourth pillar is building a Korea-Europe innovation corridor. Korea possesses world's leading expertise in semiconductor manufacturing and advanced packaging. Europe contributes strengths in optics, precision engineering, motion systems, industrial automation, and semiconductor research. Bond these capabilities together could create a powerful innovation ecosystem that accelerates technological development for both sides. So one of the things I understood, why am I saying this? Why am I emphasizing on building this bridge? Why did I even start this Silk Route of Systems consultancy, this web series? Why am I forcing companies to talk to each other? Why am I saying that I will become your liaison and I will go to different companies and help you build strategic relationships? Why am I doing that? Because I know after working for almost 14 years in the capital equipment industry, for over a decade, I worked in technical leadership positions, and then it became program leadership positions. I've also worked as architect in the semiconductor industry. So why am I always trying to connect different companies? It's because even though every company says that they are the leader for this, they are the leader for that, they hold a strategic position here, strategic position there. At the end of the day, the machine, the factory intelligence, the overall ecosystem is an amalgamation of all the knowledge together. Working in silos, and I have seen suppliers and companies working in silos. Working in silos, not together, is only going to cost you money. It's only going to make you disconnected from where the market is going for the next 5 years. You know, Nokia is a typical example. We all know the story. That's why I constantly encourage my clients to talk to other companies and, of course, research it better. But of course, it's not everybody's cup of tea. And that's why people like me, we exist to help you, the executives, make the right decisions. We place all the information in front of you so that you know which direction is the best and the path of least resistance. Therefore, please write to me at prashuria.b@outlook.com and we should talk. All right, let's get back to the slides here. The fifth pillar. The fifth pillar is becoming the intelligence layer of advanced packaging. Hanmi equipment already sees alignment, quality, bonding quality, defects, throughput, and yield-related information. The next opportunity may be transforming that visibility into accountable intelligence that helps customers improve factory performance, predict maintenance needs, and optimize production. And finally, the sixth pillar, it's building a complete packaging ecosystem. Hanmi already possesses many of the building blocks: bonding systems, inspection technologies, grinding systems, laser systems, vision platforms. The next evolution could be and should be connecting those capabilities through a common architecture where equipment, data analytics, and optimization function as a single integrated environment. Ultimately, the strategic question is not whether Hanmi can build world-class machines. It has already proven that. The question is whether Hanmi can evolve from being a supplier of advanced packaging equipment into becoming one of the defining ecosystem leaders of advanced packaging itself. And of course, strategy only becomes reality when supported by the right ecosystem. So the next question is, which organizations, suppliers, research institutes, and technology partners around the world could accelerate these 6 pillars? To discuss the future partnerships and ecosystem expansion, it's important to understand where Hanmi Semiconductor sits today within the broader semiconductor supply chain. Look to your screen here. Starting from the left, we have the supplier ecosystem. Hanmi, its current supplier ecosystem. Now, Hanmi does not publicly disclose its complete supplier network, but like every leading semiconductor equipment manufacturer, it depends on a wide range of enabling technologies. These include precision motion systems, bearings, optics, advanced materials, and industrial automation sensors, the vision technologies, software platforms, electronics, precision machining, assemblies, and manufacturing capabilities, of course. These technologies form the foundation upon which advanced semiconductor equipment is built. The center sits Hanmi Semiconductor. Over the years, Hanmi has developed a portfolio that includes TC bonders, hybrid bonders, vision placement systems, inspection systems, and other advanced packaging equipment. Each of these technologies addresses a critical step in the increasingly complex process of semiconductor packaging and assembly. Moving to the right, we see Hanmi's customer base. These include some of the most important companies in the semiconductor industry, such as SK Hynix, Samsung Electronics, Micron, ASE, Amkor, and GCET. Together, these organizations manufacture and package many of the world's most advanced semiconductor devices. Those devices support a growing range of advanced packaging applications. Today, that includes HBM, chiplets, 2.5D packaging, 3D packaging, and other advanced packaging architectures that are becoming increasingly important as traditional transistor scaling approaches physical limits. And finally, at the far right, we see the end markets that ultimately benefit from this entire ecosystem. AI data centers, cloud computing platforms, high-performance computing systems, automotive AI, and the broader NVIDIA ecosystem all depend on advanced packaging technologies to deliver higher performance and lower power consumption and greater computing density. What makes Hanmi particularly interesting is that it sits in the middle of these forces. It connects a complex global supplier network to some of the world's most important semiconductor manufacturers, which in turn support the technologies driving in the AI economy. In other words, Hanmi is no longer simply selling machines. It occupies a strategic position within one of the most valuable industrial ecosystems built today, the semiconductor ecosystem. Now that we have understood Hanmi's current position in the supply chain, we can begin exploring how specific organizations across Europe, Middle East, and even Far East Asia could strengthen this ecosystem and support the 6 strategic pillars that we discussed earlier. So this is Hanmi's existing supply chain and also the customer base. So on the left, you will see all the different types of suppliers that they would have. I'm not saying that these are the materials, industrial innovation, platforms, components. They're not suppliers. They're the type of companies that Hanmi would have a supplier base with. And you can see Hanmi Semiconductors. In the middle, you can see Hanmi Semiconductors product line. And on the right side, you will see the customers, the applications, and the overall end market that we are talking about. Let's go to the next slide. If Hanmi's ambition is to influence where advanced packaging goes next, not just supply equipment into existing processes, then access to the future technology roadmaps become critically important. And that brings us to Belgium's IMEC. In many ways, IMEC is one of the most influential semiconductor research organizations in the world. But again, it cannot do everything on its own. It relies on ASML, it relies on VDL Group, and everything. The Benelux area in general has a very good system of coexisting together. Large giants, IMEC, VDL, and ASML, Siemens, they all collaborate together. They constantly talk to each other and they constantly supply expertise to each other. And they remain profitable. They remain extremely profitable. I mean, IMEC is a research organization primarily, and it still makes profits. It's still doing very well. Its revenue is still excellent. How does it do? Collaboration. And it does industrial research. It doesn't simply do academic research. So, all right, let's go back to the slides again. IMEC is one of the most influential semiconductor research organizations in the world. Much of the industry's thinking around chiplets, 2.5D integration, 3D integration, co-packaged optics, and next-generation packaging concepts passes through IMEC years before reaching large-scale manufacturing. For Hanmi, the value is not simply access to research. The value is visibility into where the industry is heading before those technologies become mainstream. That insight can help guide equipment development, process innovation, and long-term investment decisions. Beyond IMEC, there are several highly specialized European SMEs worth considering. One example is Ficentech in Germany. Company specializes in automated photonic assembly. Today, photonics is still a relatively small part of the semiconductor packaging. But if co-packaged optics becomes a major component of future AI infrastructure, companies like Ficentech could become strategically important partners within that ecosystem, a food for thought. Another interesting company is Nanoscribe, also based in Germany. Nanoscribe focuses on high-precision microfabrication and advanced photonic structures. While some of its technologies may appear future-oriented today, they align closely with the industry's broader movement towards increasingly sophisticated packaging and optical integration. What's important here is that the objective is not simply supplier qualification. The objective is strategic collaboration. The journey begins with collaboration, evolves into co-development of new technologies and validation platforms, and ultimately creates opportunities to influence industry standards and packaging architectures. In other words, if Hanmi wants to participate in defining the future of packaging, rather than simply responding to it, partnerships with organizations such as IMEC and highly specialized European innovators could provide an important competitive advantage. And of course, defining the future of packaging is only one part of the equation. The next opportunity is creating value long after a machine has been installed, and that leads to the concept of a Hanmi manufacturing intelligence platform in the next slide. Today, most semiconductor equipment companies generate revenue primarily when a machine is sold or installed. But what if the installation of the machine was only the beginning of the value creation journey? Every TC bonder, hybrid bonder inspection system, vision placement platform continuously generates information. It sees process parameters, throughput trends, alignment accuracy, defect patterns, maintenance indicators, and production performance. In many ways, Hanmi's equipment already acts as a sensor network inside some of the world's most advanced packaging facilities. The important opportunity here is to transform that operational visibility into a manufacturing intelligence platform. This is where companies such as Siemens could become highly relevant. Siemens brings capabilities in industrial AI, digital twins, manufacturing execution systems, and factory analytics. By combining Hanmi's equipment expertise with Siemens's digital technologies, Hanmi could potentially offer customers not just machines, but an intelligent packaging environment capable of simulation, optimization, and continuous improvement. Software AG, another company here in Europe, provides another interesting capability. Their strengths in industrial IoT, which is Internet of Things, data integration, and operational intelligence could help connect equipment data across production lines and facilities, creating a more data-centric architecture. SAP contributes from a different perspective. Their expertise in supply chain visibility, manufacturing intelligence, and expertise analytics could help connect factory operations to broader business objectives, allowing customers to optimize production decisions using both operational and commercial data. Beyond the larger technology providers, there are also highly specialized SMEs worth considering. Companies such as Relayer, SimMedia, and Tcon offer capabilities in predictive maintenance, remote services, and manufacturing data integration. These may appear like small additions individually, but when you put them together, they help create a service model that continues delivering value throughout the entire life cycle of installed equipment. Looking further ahead, organizations such as Presight AI from the UAE can bring in growing expertise in industrial AI and predictive analysis, opening possibilities for future collaborations around intelligent manufacturing systems. The ultimate objective is straightforward: move from one-time equipment transactions towards recurring value creation. When customers achieve higher yields, lower downtime, better process optimization, and more predictable factory performance, Hanmi's relationship evolves from equipment supplier to long-term strategic partner. And that creates a more resilient business model. See, I understand that perhaps Hanmi's executives have already thought about it. The question is not, should Hanmi do it? Hanmi should do this. Why not have a manufacturing intelligence platform? That's the only way to survive. in an industry, in a world that is going increasingly towards AI, increasingly towards machine learning, increasingly towards software development and sophisticated software development, actually. So it's not a question of why Hanmi should not do it or Hanmi should not do it. It's a question of how can Hanmi prove to its clients, to its customers like SK Hynix and Micron that they can do this, that they can actually build the manufacturing intelligence platform, and why should the customers depend on Hanmi and not depend on other similar suppliers or other partners or their own intelligence system. That is worth looking into. In my opinion, if you show, it's all about your supply chain and your connections. If you show your clients that you have the right supply chain, the right architecture in place, the right business case, the fact that it is an absolute must for the fab managers of 2030s, if you're able to show that to your clients, I don't see any reason why they should not come to you or they should not assign you this responsibility. So I would say, think about it, truly think about this. And your best bet is actually European suppliers, European SMEs and multinationals like SAP, Siemens, Software AG, and of course the SMEs like Ficantech, SimMedia, Tcon, Presight AI. Presight AI is from Middle East. Think about this. Manufacturing intelligence strengthens the value of existing equipment. The next strategic challenge is ensuring that Hanmi remains relevant regardless of which semiconductor architecture dominates the future. And that brings us to the third pillar, which is expanding beyond HBM. Today, most semiconductor equipment companies generate revenue primarily when a machine is sold and installed. But what if the installation of the machine was only the beginning of the value creation journey? Every TC bonder, hybrid bonder, inspection system, and vision placement platform continuously generates information. It sees process parameters, throughput trends, alignment accuracy, defect patterns, maintenance indicators. In many ways, Hanmi equipment already acts as a sensor network inside some of the world's most advanced packaging facilities. The opportunity is to transform that operational visibility into a manufacturing intelligence platform. Sure, we discussed that. This is where companies such as Siemens could become highly relevant. Siemens bring in capabilities in industrial AI, digital twins, manufacturing execution systems, and factory analytics. And by combining Hanmi's equipment expertise with Siemens digital technology, Hanmi could potentially offer customers not just machines, but an intelligent packaging environment capable of simulation, optimization, and continuous improvement. And yes, Software AG provides another interesting capability. Their strengths is in industrial Internet of Things, data integration, operational intelligence, and they could help connect equipment data across production lines and facilities. SAP contributes from a different perspective. Expertise is in supply chain visibility, manufacturing intelligence, and enterprise analytics, and that could help connect factory operations to broader business objectives, allowing customers to optimize production decisions using both operational and commercial data. Beyond the larger technology providers, there's also highly specialized SMEs worth considering. We discussed about this earlier as well. Relayer, SimMedia, Tcon, they offer capabilities in predictive maintenance, remote service, and manufacturing data integration. These may appear like small additions individually, but together they help create a service model that continues delivering value throughout the entire life cycle of installed equipment. Looking further ahead, organizations such as Presight from UAE, they bring in growing expertise in industrial AI, and they open possibilities for future collaborations around intelligent manufacturing systems. So moving from one-time equipment transactions towards a recurring value creation, that is actually how you keep ahead of time beyond HBM. So no matter what happens, which direction the semiconductor industry goes towards, the manufacturing intelligence system, that is what is primarily important for everybody. Fourth pillar. The fourth pillar is particularly interesting because it is not based on replacing what Hanmi already does well. It's about combining complementary strengths from different regions of the world. Korea has become one of the global leaders in semiconductor manufacturing, advanced packaging, HBM production, and bonding technologies. Hanmi itself is a strong example of that expertise. Europe, on the other hand, brings different but equally valuable capabilities: precision engineering, optics, mechatronics, motion control, industrial automation, and semiconductor research remains these areas where European organizations continue to be world-class. The opportunity is to connect these strengths through a modern industrial Silk Route. For example, companies such as VDL Group in the Netherlands possess deep expertise in precision manufacturing, systems integration, and mechatronics. As Hanmi continues to grow, organizations like VDL could contribute valuable manufacturing and integration capabilities. Franken is another interesting example. With extensive experience supporting semiconductor equipment manufacturers, their expertise in precision assemblies and equipment manufacturing could help support future scaling and capacity expansion. I mean, think about it. Hanmi already has a German branch. Why not pair up with similar expertise companies? And then there is Besi. Besi is perhaps the most fascinating organization on this slide because it occupies a unique position. In some areas, Besi can be viewed as a competitor. In other areas, it may become a collaborator. It's all about the relationship you build with them. Both companies are moving towards increasingly similar future markets involving advanced packaging, hybrid bonding, and next-generation semiconductor assembly. History has shown that industries are often shaped not only by competition, but also by strategic collaboration between organizations that recognize common opportunities. The Middle East introduces another dimension to the ecosystem. Organizations such as Mubadala in the UAE and Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund bring significant investment capabilities and growing interest in semiconductors, advanced manufacturing, and AI infrastructure. Their role may not necessarily be technology development. Instead, they can act as catalysts for ecosystem expansion, demonstration facilities, innovation centers, and long-term industrial investments. And of course, Belgium's IMEC. Belgium's IMEC remains one of the most important research anchors in the world for advanced semiconductor packaging. When we step back and look at the bigger picture, the goal is not simply to build supplier relationships. The goal is to create an innovation network, a network that combines Korean packaging leadership, European industrial excellence, and Middle Eastern investment strength to accelerate innovation, improve supply chain resilience, and create new opportunities that no single region could achieve alone. In many ways, this is the essence of the Silk Route of Systems concept, connecting strengths across regions to create greater value for everyone involved. Technology partnerships and regional collaboration can accelerate innovation. But regardless of where the technology comes from, the future semiconductor factory will increasingly depend on intelligence, automation, and data-driven decision-making. That brings us to the next pillar, becoming the intelligence layer of advanced packaging. For decades, the semiconductor equipment companies have primarily competed through hardware performance, better precision, better throughput, better reliability. But the factories of the future will increasingly compete through intelligence. Every advanced packaging facility will require AI-assisted optimization, predictive maintenance, and autonomous scheduling, yield prediction, and continuous process improvement. And what's interesting is that Hanmi already possesses one of the most important ingredients required to make that transition: visibility. Every bonding system, inspection platform, and packaging tool already observes critical information about the manufacturing process. The machines see alignment accuracy, bond quality, process variation, throughput performance, and defect generation in real time. The opportunity is to transform that visibility into intelligence. This is where strategic technology partners become important. Siemens brings capabilities in industrial AI, digital twins, simulation environments, and manufacturing analytics. They already possess many of the technologies required to convert machine data into actionable insights that improve factory performance. Bosch RefRox contributes another important capability set. Smart innovation, industrial AI, and connected manufacturing technologies can help create increasingly autonomous packaging environments where equipment continuously optimizes itself based on real production conditions. Beckhoff adds strengths in real-time automation, EtherCAT-based communication, and factory intelligence architectures. These technologies are particularly relevant when multiple packaging tools need to operate as a coordinated system rather than isolated machines. And then there are highly focused specialists such as Sim Media and Relayer. These companies may be smaller, but they address very practical challenges: remote diagnostics, predictive maintenance, equipment monitoring, and service optimization. These capabilities help create long-term value throughout the life cycle of installed equipment. What makes this strategy powerful is that it fundamentally changes the business model. Instead of simply selling a machine, Hanmi can begin delivering machine intelligence, as we discussed earlier. The value flow becomes straightforward. Machines generate data. Data enables AI and optimization. AI and optimization create measurable customer value, and measurable customer value becomes a new source of revenue and differentiation. Ultimately, this is not just about monetizing data. It's about helping customers improve yields, reduce downtime, optimize production, and operate smarter factories. When that happens, Hanmi evolves from being an equipment supplier into becoming a value creation partner embedded within the customer's manufacturing operation. They become indispensable. There's another reason this shift towards intelligence is strategically important. Capital equipment companies, doesn't matter which ecosystem you're talking about, whether it's aerospace, semiconductor, automotives, medical devices, capital equipment companies are increasingly valued not for the machines they sell, but for the recurring value they create after installation. When an equipment is connected to analytics, predictive maintenance, optimization services, and factory intelligence, the business becomes more scalable, more resilient, and less dependent on the timing of individual equipment orders. From an investor and M&A perspective, that creates something extremely attractive: recurring revenue streams, deeper customer integration, higher switching costs, and stronger long-term customer relationships. In other words, intelligence doesn't just improve factory performance. It can increase the overall strategic value of the company itself. And that naturally leads to the next question. If intelligence increases the value of individual machines, what happens when the entire packaging workflow becomes connected through one single ecosystem, one single system? That brings us to the final pillar: build a complete advanced packaging ecosystem. And that is where my expertise as an architect, my expertise in different capital equipment industries, capital equipment companies come into use. For the executives of Hanmi Semiconductor, as well as any executive out there who wants to learn from this web series, you can look at this slide and you would see that I have created an enterprise architecture framework. It's a scalable operating model that turns strategy into execution and increases long-term enterprise value. What does it mean? These are big words and there are so many icons and the infographic looks professional, but what does it mean? We talked about 5 threats. Then we talked about potential market strategy to mitigate those threats, to mitigate those risks. And I provided 5 pillars for it, right? Then we looked into Hanmi's existing supply chain, and then I proposed potential supplier relationships to draw a new supply chain architecture that would actually mitigate the threats, mitigate the 5 threats. And then I'm now proposing an enterprise architecture framework, which will bind the entire supply chain architecture together and make the organization, make Hanmi Semiconductor extremely valuable for investors, extremely attractive for the mergers and acquisition leaders, extremely valuable for the stock market even. What is an enterprise architecture? It's the overall operating model, how information should pass from one point to the other. Why is it important? It's important because good operating system that is designed for the future will ultimately propel and accelerate and extract maximum value out of the supply chain architecture for the future. And that will ultimately mitigate all the risks, and that will pacify the threats. And that's why the enterprise architecture framework is so important. And that is why the enterprise architecture framework comes after the supply chain architecture is fixed. And supply chain architecture comes after you have recognized all the threats, you have recognized all the risks. You see how it goes? And if you just go and build an enterprise architecture, let's say you introduce tools like Jira or Plan View, it's just operational. It's just people doing what they have been doing for the last 10 or 20 years. They're not moving towards a direction. In order for you as an executive to truly lead your organization, you have to start with the threats first. Your risks and your threats, your competitor landscape. Of course, you know that. But are you doing it? Are you connecting end to end? Are you creating a supply chain architecture around your company? Are you building strategic partnerships? Are you dependent on only one client? Are you looking for the future, for 20 years ahead? These are the questions that can be answered when you sit down with a consultant like yours truly. Sit down with me. Let's talk about your aspirations. I want to listen what you have done already. And I want to help you. I want to be a liaison for you. I want to go to different customers with you, your customers. I want to present our plan. I want to make my plan our plan. I want to be a liaison for you for connecting with European manufacturers and Middle Eastern investors. That's what I am here for. All right, let's get back to the slide, shall we? Up to this point, we have discussed strategic threats, future opportunities, technology partnerships, manufacturing intelligence, and a ecosystem leadership itself. But there is an important reality that every executive team eventually faces. A strategy is only valuable if the organization is capable of executing it. That's very true. Often executives take certain decisions which program directors receive, head of engineering receive. But the organization is not there yet, executed. It's not about hiring smart engineers. It's not about hiring young people. It's about have you enable them with the right tools and the right information flow to work for you, execute your vision. Have you enabled them? And that's what architecture is all about. That's what enterprise architecture framework is all about. If Hanmi decides to pursue some of the strategic directions that we have discussed, which is advanced packaging leadership, manufacturing intelligence, ecosystem integration, recurring digital revenue, and global innovation partnerships, then the organization itself must evolve. This slide illustrates one possible enterprise architecture framework that aligns the operating model with those future strategic ambitions. Let's start from the top, shall we? The vision is straightforward. To become the intelligence layer of advanced packaging and ultimately a global packaging ecosystem leader, once that vision is established, the organization needs a set of strategic capabilities that support it. What are these capabilities? Capabilities are nothing but skill sets of people. These are people. These are human resources. These capabilities include packaging innovation, manufacturing intelligence, global technology partnerships, company value optimization, and ecosystem platform development. Notice that these are not products. They're organizational capabilities. They are skill sets of people you hire and hire for a strategic purpose, not simply because they are smart, not simply because they are intelligent. Capabilities survive product cycles. Capabilities survive technology transitions. Capabilities are what investors ultimately pay for. They're assets. The second layer focuses on value streams. This is how strategy is converted into repeatable business value. The first value stream transforms market opportunities into products. The second transforms supplier innovation into product innovation. The third transforms installed equipment into recurring value through services, optimization, upgrades, and intelligence. This is particularly important because it moves Hanmi from a one-time transaction model towards a long-term customer value model. The third layer is what system engineers would recognize as the digital thread. Information flows continuously from market insights to system concepts, requirements, design verification, manufacturing, and customer feedback. Instead of departments working independently, the entire innovation cycle becomes connected. Customer feedback from today's machine directly influences tomorrow's product roadmap. The fourth layer is knowledge architecture. You need this. Many companies do not add enough value on the knowledge architecture. They think, okay, we have hired people. If we retain them, the knowledge is intact. I completely disagree. I have worked in Europe for more than 10 years, more than a decade now, and I often see that employees are retained for the wrong purposes. Employees are retained because Management fears that they hold all the knowledge. We should do something about this. And the answer is knowledge architecture. One of the greatest risks in high technology environment organizations is that knowledge remains trapped inside individuals or isolated departments. As engineers retire, change roles, or move to competitors, value expertise can disappear, or at least they're feared to disappear. The wheel had to be invented again. It happens sometimes, quite a lot of times actually. A centralized enterprise knowledge system transforms market knowledge, design knowledge, supplier knowledge, and manufacturing knowledge and service knowledge into strategic assets that remain inside the company. This becomes especially valuable as Hanmi grows internationally. The fifth layer is acquisition architecture. You need this because at one point, you have to think about acquisition. It's not practical to not think about it. And this is where the framework becomes particularly relevant to investors and M&A firms, the mergers and acquisition firms. If Han acquires a technology company, partners with a software company, invests in a startup, or expands into a new region, integration becomes dramatically easier when there are common processes, common data models, common governance structures, common KPIs, and common development methodologies. In other words, acquisitions become repeatable rather than disruptive. And when we look at the outcomes, something important emerges. The goal is not architecture for architecture's sake. The goal is faster innovation, faster time to market, higher customer loyalty, recurring revenue streams, ecosystem lock-in, operational excellence, and ultimately higher enterprise value. Because in the semiconductor industry, future market leaders will not simply be the companies with the best machines. They will be the companies that successfully connect strategy, technology, operations, knowledge, partnerships, and acquisitions into a single scalable operating model, as shown here. So the message here is not that Hanmi needs to change everything tomorrow. The message is that every strategic move creates organizational consequences. If Hanmi chooses to become an intelligence company, the organization must support intelligence. If Hanmi chooses to become an ecosystem leader, the organization must grow accordingly. If Han chooses to become a more valuable acquisition target, acquisition platform, or global technology leader, the operating model must evolve accordingly. You have to present yourself in that manner. So this enterprise architecture framework is simply one example of how the organization could evolve to support the strategic future we have discussed throughout this presentation. Technology strategy creates opportunity. Enterprise architecture creates execution. When both evolve together, long-term competitive advantage becomes much more difficult for competitors to replicate. The previous slide introduced a possible enterprise architecture framework that aligns Hanmi's long-term strategy with value creation, innovation, and enterprise growth. But an enterprise architecture only becomes valuable when information can flow efficiently between all of these layers. That raises an important question. How do we connect strategy, engineering, suppliers, manufacturing, customers, and future product development into one operational model? My answer would be to use the V model. Traditionally, the V model has been used within engineering organizations to connect requirements, design, development, verification, and validation activities. But for a company like Hanmi, the V model can become something much larger. It can become the operational backbone that connects every layer of the enterprise architecture we discussed earlier. At the very top of the model, very top, we begin with strategic intent. That's where Hanmi's leadership team defines future objectives. For example, leadership in HBM and hybrid bonding. It's an example. Expansion into chiplets and co-packaged optics, manufacturing intelligence platforms, packaging ecosystem leadership, new customer segments, and geographic expansion. Those strategic objectives then flow into portfolio management. This is where platforms such as PlanView become extremely valuable. PlanView can connect strategic initiatives directly to investment portfolios, technology roadmaps, innovation programs, supplier development activities, and product portfolios. In other words, executives can see how strategic decisions translate into actual work being performed throughout the organization. From there, those objectives become system concepts and requirements. Engineering teams define performance targets, throughput requirements, yield goals, reliability objectives, software capabilities, inspection requirements, and manufacturing constraints. This is where platforms such as Jira, Polarian, Teamcenter, Siemens Accelerator can connect requirements directly to development activities. What happens when the executives and system architects do this? Every requirement becomes traceable. Every engineering task becomes linked to a strategic objective. Every design decision becomes connected to a customer need. Every development progresses. Module teams, software teams, automation teams, optics teams, supplier organizations all contribute to execution. Jira can manage daily engineering work. PlanView can manage cross-functional programs. PLM systems can manage product knowledge. ERP systems such as SAP can manage procurement, manufacturing, and supply chain execution. Instead of operating as separate silos, they become part of a connected digital thread. The V model, as you see, focuses on verification and validation. Individual modules are tested. That's on the right side, actually, on the upper side. Individual modules are tested. Integrated systems are verified. Manufacturing processes are validated. Customer acceptance is confirmed. Most companies stop here, but the real value emerges when the information flows back upward. Customer escalations, yield performance, field service data, equipment utilization, market trends, competitive intelligence. All of this information is captured and connected back to requirements, designs, roadmaps, strategic objectives for the next line of machines or the next line of intelligence systems. Now the organization begins to learn as a system. And this is where enterprise architecture and the V model becomes inseparable. The enterprise architecture defines the capabilities Hanmi wants to build. The V model defines how information moves between those capabilities. Together, they create a closed-loop innovation system where strategy influences engineering, engineering influences manufacturing, manufacturing influences customers, and customer insights continuously influence future strategy. For investors and potential acquisition partners, this is gold. This is a system that works. This is a well-oiled machine. If you are able to demonstrate at least 5 years of unhindered results, it's gold for the acquisition leaders. It's gold. It reduces dependence on individual experts. It accelerates onboarding of new teams. It simplifies acquisition integration. It improves traceability, it strengthens governance, and most importantly, it creates an organization capable of scaling globally without losing knowledge or execution quality. The result is not simply better packaging. The result is a learning organization where every customer installation, every supplier interaction, every engineering project, every market signal continuously increases the value of the enterprise itself. Before we conclude, I would like to leave you with 3 simple messages. The first is transparency. No sponsorship, funding, or commercial agreement has been accepted from any company mentioned in this video. Every observation, recommendation, and strategic idea presented here is based solely on publicly available information, industry experience, and independent analysis by yours truly. The second is value and purpose. This video is not intended to be a sales presentation. It is intended to demonstrate a way of thinking. The Silk Route of Systems was created around a simple idea that significant value can be created when companies, suppliers, technologies, and regions that normally operate separately are connected through a common strategic architecture. Whether the discussion involves semiconductor packaging, aerospace systems, automotives, or medical devices, energy infrastructure, industrial technology, the principle remains the same. The right ecosystem often creates more value than any individual company can create alone. And finally, let's connect. If any of the ideas discussed today resonate with you, but you're unsure how they apply to your organization, I would be delighted to continue the conversation. Every company has a unique strategy, unique constraints, and of course, unique opportunities. The goal is never to copy somebody else's architecture. The goal is to bring the architecture. The goal is to build the architecture that best supports your own ambitions. If you would like to discuss supply chain architecture, enterprise architecture, technology partnerships, operational transformation, or ecosystem development, please feel free to reach out by an email or schedule a conversation through the Calendly link provided. Thank you for your time. I so look forward to connecting with you. Silk Route of Systems. building value, connecting worlds, creating opportunities where others see boundaries.